Hello, fellow citizens! I am your host, Jess, and this is your reminder that the weight of the entire world is not on your shoulders, and you can make a difference. This podcast is about what it means to be a citizen and neighbor where you live. For me, that's Philadelphia. There are lots of ways to be a citizen and a neighbor, and I want to cover all of them in this podcast, starting with the belief that citizens should be informed. Because of our current nationwide agenda, I'm kicking off the podcast by examining the candidates and roles on the 2020 general election ballot. Hello, fellow citizens. Today I am joined by somebody who I think I know him as like the person who's been living in this area the longest. So I'm glad that we have like a true Philly guy on the show. I'm joined by Dan. Dan, do you think that's an okay title for you?
Yeah, it's definitely positive. I'll take it. I was born in California, but I grew up in Upper Darby, and then I went to Drexel, and then I've just lived all over Philly since then. So,
Nice.
Yeah, we've been in Philly for, I guess like 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I really thought you were a lifer. See, the things you learn on a podcast.
Actually, I guess it's like 17 because like I'm 35 and I guess I started living actually in Philly like when I was 18. But anyway, whatever. But
And that's when you really become an adult, right? Like in your 20s.
I guess. I don't know. I just remember working a lot.
Well, speaking of that, we're in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Have things changed for you, and how are you spending your time?
I work from home. I might be looking over here a couple times. I got a big monitor, I invested in a nice office chair. Try to have be mindful of my routines more so than before. You kind of got to use the same space to work out, entertain yourself and cook and same deal. But, that reading, biking a lot. Got into disc golf. It's pretty fun.
Wow.
I didn't want to mention that. I'm like, don't go play. It's already busy enough. But how about yourself?
I mean, this podcast is taking up so much of my time, but I'm learning a lot. So like, I'm that nerd who's like, this is fun.
Cool.
It's a good excuse to like get out from in front of the TV, because that's where, if I'm not walking dogs, I'm just watching TV.
So that's the routine I'm talking about, like that mindfulness. Like I've been trying to like set time aside. Like actually, before I got on this, I was just playing Last of Us. So I was just like, I'm like, there's definitely parts where I'm like, I'm just playing video games today.
Yeah.
I do try to like read a book or learn or etc.
Do you play video games that are like about the end of the world?
Last of Us 2 is about the end of the world.
Oh, it's not too real for you?
This one's insanely real. Like when you stop, you get a gory death. Like I got stuck at this one boss, and my character's like face got shotgunned off like so many times. The first time it happens, you get like really like you're like Jesus, and then after the seventh, you're like, oh. You're just like you feel bad for the character that you put her through it. You're just like, come on. But I play video games that are like a year and a half old, so
nice.
Like $10 and. They're new to me though.
On the computer or like you have
to? I got a PS4, and
okay.
I probably won't get a PS5 for another 2-3 years when I run through because I'm always like a year and a half behind with video games.
Yeah, well that sounds smart because maybe everybody has all the cheat codes by then.
Pretty much, yeah. They'll work out the problems for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we're talking about real life. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Hey, try to ignore it as much as you can, but yeah.
So we're talking about the Pennsylvania general election ballot. You were kind enough to come on to talk about the Stop and Frisk question. So how long have you been voting, Dan?
I guess I was like Al Gore that election.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like as soon as I turned 18, I thought it was pretty cool. I still think it's pretty cool. I'm loving the mail-in ballots. You get to research the guy, check it out, make some opinions, go through all their old Twitter.
Yeah, I wonder if like before the mail-in ballots, people didn't really look for their sample ballots, and so they kind of just showed up and were like,
it's kind of that's what I did when I was younger. But like it's kind of hard because you got the president, you got attorney general, auditor general, state treasurer, like. There's like 3 other representatives of Congress. These 4 questions, like.
Yeah, ours is a little bit bigger, but it's not as big as California. They have 12 questions to vote on.
Wow.
So I think we're right in the middle. So how did you do your research for this? Like, do you think that you're informed on a local level?
On a local level, not so much. On like an opinion level, definitely. I read like a couple links because it's really just at the like it's the police chief, right? He like makes all these calls and he serves at the pleasure of the mayor. So like, I mean, it was Nutter, and then that was Ramsey, and then there was a guy between that. Now we're at Outlaw, I believe, which I think is the coolest last name for a police chief. But
oh my gosh,
that came out. I was like, well, I don't know if people were talking about this more. But anyway, yeah, I just so at the local level, I'm not sure like what their personal opinions are at the moment. I'm totally against stop and frisk. I think it's stupid. It's like even if every person they stop and frisk did have like, let's just say heroin on them or like some sort of narcotic drug, like it's not worth the paperwork. Like,
oh my gosh,
like it's just not. Get a little bit of drugs off the street. Everyone's got to do all this work.
Damn. Well, yeah, let's get right into it. I'm gonna read the question and then I'm gonna let you like share your knowledge. So, question number 1 on the Pennsylvania general election ballot: Stop and frisk. Shall the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to call on the police department to eliminate the practice of unconstitutional stop and frisk, consistent with judicial precedent, meaning an officer must have reasonable suspicion that a person is engaged in criminal activity in order to stop that person, and therefore an officer cannot stop someone unlawfully because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religious affiliation or expression, or other protected characteristics. What are your thoughts, Dan?
I mean, it was pretty clear cut before, but now that I'm reading it again, it's just the end. It's kind of weird because, like, as a cop, like, let's say if I broke into a store and then, like, you know, they
what? You're a cop breaking into a store?
No. Sorry, like, I broke into the store. I'm not the cop, but like, so I break into the store, I grab all the money, I like say bye on my way out because I'm nice, and then I run away, and then like the cop's gonna look for a 5'9" white guy with a great smile, and like. I don't know. That just seems stupid at the end. Like, wouldn't it be cannot stop someone unlawfully? I guess it would be lawful because then I'm like, I'm a suspect because they got. All right. Let me take it back. I didn't ignore everything I just said.
This is great. So are you cool if I help you out of it?
Yeah, sure.
Let's like break it down a bit. So, I want to tell our audience what exactly is stop and frisk, because this question is specifically talking about eliminating the practice of unconstitutional stop and frisk. So it's really interesting. Stop and frisk became legal after a 1968 Supreme Court ruling, which was Terry versus Ohio. And if you really look at the today's Philly Police Department directive, they actually will refer to stopping a pedestrian. They'll refer to that pedestrian as a Terry, which I think is interesting.
Why is that?
So that was the name of one of the guys that was stopped in this case by a police officer. And so it's a big name. And I don't know if all the police officers today realize that that's where that name comes from in the ruling of a stop and frisk. So this Supreme Court hearing says that stop and frisk is legal so long as the officer has reasonable suspicion that the person has either just committed a crime or is about to commit a crime, and that can be based on a 911 call. It cannot be based solely on an anonymous tip. And then a frisk, which is like a pat down and searching somebody's body, is only supposed to take place if an officer believes that their life is threatened by a weapon on the suspect. So I thought that was really interesting to really break down what is a stop and frisk, and to know that when you do it the right way with reasonable suspicion, it is legal. But
so like back to the store that I robbed, like,
yes,
if someone called 911 and they're like, hey, this guy 5'9", then they can stop and frisk me. But
so they can come up to you and basically question you, and then they'd probably try to like get you to slip up, and that's the stopping part of it. It would kind of depend in that case if maybe like by the way your clothes were hanging on you, or if the person who made the 911 call said that they were held up at gunpoint, then they might have the right to frisk you because they believe that you have a weapon on you.
Yeah, but like, wouldn't they need to like find the money that I stole from the shopping store? Like, wouldn't they need
That's
to?
why.
Isn't that how policing works? Now I'm
Um,
confused. I thought this was just cops driving up and being like, "Hey, you, get on the wall." Like that
So
should be.
that's an unlawful one. So that's the one that they're trying to put into the home rule charter. And there's a lot of statistics about this because what happened was in 2010 there was 3 guys that were part of an unlawful stop and frisk, and they actually got the ACLU involved. So the Pennsylvania ACLU filed a civil suit against Philadelphia, alleging that stop and frisk tactics were infringing upon the rights of minorities. And at that time, the lawsuit showed that more than 250,000 pedestrians were stopped the year before, compared to just over 100,000 in 2005. The vast majority of the stops did not lead to an arrest. And so this whole case was based on the idea that this was unconstitutional and they were targeting minorities. And so the city of Philadelphia settled in 2011, and they agreed to let a court-appointed monitor oversee the police department's use of stop and frisk. So now the police department has to fill out these reports that are supposed to be really detailed to justify that they're doing this with reasonable suspicion. But unfortunately, today, up to 16% of stop and frisks are still without like a just cause.
I wonder how many 16% is.
So the second half of 2019, the ACLU reported that in that second half of the year alone, there was almost 39,000 total stops, and 16% of those is 6,490 pedestrian stops without reason.
I didn't think you were gonna have that ready.
Yeah. I got you, Dan.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't really seem that bad. But
I mean, 6,000 some people being unreasonably stopped. Like, yeah, that seems like a. So I want to back
all
up.
of PA or all of like America?
This is Philadelphia.
This Philly? Oh shit.
Yeah, because that's who the ACLU had their lawsuit against. So to back up a little bit, like you mentioned, there was Mayor Nutter. So he was mayor from 2008 to 2016, and that's who introduced stop and frisk as a practice by the police in Philadelphia. And like you said, during that time, Charles Ramsey was the police commissioner. And so in 2014, for the whole year, there was 200,000 pedestrian stops. And of that, 80,000 were without reasonable suspicion. And to put that into perspective, the Lincoln Financial Stadium seats 67,594 people. So more people than you can fit in the link were stopped without reasonable suspicion in 2014, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Like going back to percentages, it's like half of 200,000. But yeah, like, all right, so like I think you should get rid of it too. I did a little research. The New York Times said something. It was so they had like a case where Floyd versus City of New York filed in 2008 alleged that New York City police were stopping people on a basis of race without justification. Statistical study of nearly 4.5 million stops produced at trial showed that only 6% of stops resulted in arrest and 6% resulted in summonings,
yeah.
summonings. 88% of the people stopped had been doing nothing wrong, which like that's what I think most of it is. And if they are doing something moderately wrong, it's just paperwork. Like now you just wasting taxpayer money. Like we all saw The Wire. This isn't fixing anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do a job, you have to do the whole job.
Yeah.
You can't just like go out into the streets and do your business and not file the paperwork, because I think that's part of gaining everybody's trust again is like we got to see the data. And so the ACLU is trying to hold them accountable, and it does seem like there's a difference because so Mayor Nutter, he's the one that put this whole thing into like he enacted it all, And then Mayor Kenny came about, and shortly after Mayor Kenny came around, he wanted to put a stop to the unconstitutional stop and frisks. His only like solution was that we need more training. So the numbers did go down a little bit. So in 2014, there was 200,000 stops total. And we said 40% of that was without reasonable suspicion. So now 2016, we have Mayor Kenny. Everybody was campaigning about unconstitutional stop and frisk. So now they had 139,441 stops in total. And about 35,000 of those were without reasonable suspicion. So the number went down, but 35,000 people is still way too many people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, so how do they know 30? Because nothing happened? Like, there was no...
It's based on the data that so that's the thing, is like, this is based on the police paperwork.
Yeah.
And so
like,
you have to like describe what led you to that reasonable suspicion. So like, if it was something like, I saw a really good example that was like, if somebody called into the Philly 911 and was like, hey, a guy with a 76ers hat just pulled a gun on me and now he's running this direction. And then that would come over the police radio, and they would be in that neighborhood, and they would see somebody that fits that description. In their report, they would say, this is why I stopped that person.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's how policing works. So that seems okay. But then, so the 35K were that they did not fill out that form, or they just
they filled out the form. So the ACLU that's monitoring it, the people that they chose to monitor it and go through this, the way that they're reading what the police wrote, they're like, no, this doesn't justify the reason that we stopped them.
Yeah, it's not great.
I couldn't find like good examples of like how the ACLU had come to the conclusion that these were not justified, but...
Yeah, but also, like, going back to what Kenny said about the training, like, hypothetically, if I was the mayor and I had this sort of issue coming across my desk, there's a form that they need to fill out. I would just get them training to get them to use words better to prove their point, like mini lawyers. So, like, they could be like, oh, yeah, reasonable suspicion, this thing. I dropped some of the good words, and, it's cool. Like, that was my move, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty cynical, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so the numbers are dropping. But as long as we're gonna have like a vast number of people being stopped without reason, or at least feeling that they're being stopped without reason, because that's the other thing too, is like, you got to educate the people to understand like, well, what makes it unconstitutional. But a big issue that people want to get into motion is just like build that trust and build that community, not just with the citizens to the police, but with the police to the citizens. So maybe if like police officers didn't come in so aggressive, and maybe like whenever they see citizens, they would just stop and like have a conversation, just like make yourself known that like, I'm just here checking things out, and not always like, oh God, if somebody's coming up to me, this must be aggressive.
I mean, maybe? Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful idea, and I think long road ahead to that level. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess that would be nice. I don't.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice, and like, it'd be cool if there was just peace, love, and we all just got along, right? Like, it's just not
in a fantasy world, yeah. So the whole question on the ballot is basically saying, do we want to put unconstitutional stop and frisk into the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter? That's what the question's asking. They're not saying, do you think that stop and frisk without reason should be considered unconstitutional? No, it already is unconstitutional, but Philadelphia has its own city constitution, and there's a lot of information in there. It's not the easiest thing to read, honestly.
PDF.
Yeah, but they're saying if we put this into our city constitution, then we can kind of more solidify that there will be consequences. And like, that's really what I wanted to know. Like, I got a text message from some party, and this woman was like, hey, are you gonna vote yes on stop and frisk? And I was like, well, I don't really know enough yet. Like, it sounds simple enough, but I just don't understand, like, what voting yes is going to do. And then
Sounds like
she,
it's gonna add like a sentence or two to this charter, right? It's gonna make that PDF a little harder to read.
so I went to the charter, and what I'm hoping is that they have this whole section about employees in the civil service. And a
Okay.
lot of it reminds me of like when you're usually at a company that has an HR department and they're like, you can't accept gifts from vendors and
Codes of
stuff.
conduct. Yeah.
Yeah, and this says something like you can't provide false testimony and stuff like that. And there was like 3 of them. And then the 4th bullet point says that if you're found guilty of any of these things, then you can no longer work in Philadelphia civil service for 5 years. So that's actual consequences. So if that's
Yeah.
where they're going to put it, then that would be great. But like this question on the ballot doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like where are they, I guess, where are they gonna put it? Yeah.
I hope that's where they're going to put it. I don't know. But if anybody wants to know more about Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, because I was like, what is it? So what I found out is it says similar to how Pennsylvania state constitution defines the structure and powers of the Pennsylvania state government, Philadelphia Home Rule Charter defines the structure and powers of Philadelphia's government. So they're like, cool, if we put in our Philadelphia constitution that stop and frisk is going to have consequences, then we can finally do something about this rather than like, oh, you have to take some more training courses. Like, no, like you're not going to work in this service for 5 years. Could be an option. I don't know if that's where they're going to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna vote yes for it. So
Oh, yeah. I couldn't find any arguments for no.
I know that's kind of like I was like, that's why I kind of picked this one. I was like, it's a layup.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, it's more of a formality because anytime something's added to the home rule charter, they have to put it on the ballot as a question. It has to be voted by the people, which I think is really interesting.
I mean, I'd like more of them. I always get jealous of California when they got the referendums.
Yeah.
I want to have like everyone comes out, we vote on something. It's like real.
Yeah, give us more.
Just like a one off.
But I mean, how many people are doing their homework? So
I mean, clearly everyone does a little bit of different level of homework.
I hope so. So you're confident in this vote for this question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious what's going to happen next.
It's bombarded about the real life.
Right.
And video.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to talk about on this one?
No, I'm good. I hope we did good.
I think you did fine. I would love to, like, after the election, once this is like implemented and if we see any action with it, I'd love to like get you back on and really discuss like, okay, did this do anything? Like, where did they put it?
Like, I'm absolutely more than happy to come back here and talk to you in real life too. But I don't think like government works way too slow. Like,
yes.
You catch up in like 4 years, sure, but like,
yeah, it's gonna take a while. I mean?
So
I'm curious. We'll see when anything happens with this.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think that was really all that I had for this, because answering this question isn't really about the stats, but I thought it'd be interesting just to know, like,
I thought the stats are crazy. Like just the New York Times thing that I read, I was like, you guys can't do this anymore. Like, you can't.
Well, yeah, and I think that's important to like see what other places are doing too, because like whenever you're trying to do something new, it's like, well, has anybody else done it yet? Like, let's see what's happening there. Like with legalizing marijuana in New Jersey, it's like, well, obviously that's been done other places, so you can look at the stats and be like, yeah, now let's like compare it to our population. Okay, I think this could work.
Exactly. Yeah, Wolf keeps talking about it. We'll see if he does it. But
yeah.
If marijuana saves the economy, I would be very, very.
And maybe then there wouldn't be so many stop and frisks, unconstitutional or otherwise.
I think that's what they're really hunting for out there, Jess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it's been a long time since a legit dime bag can get you in jail, I think. I hope so.
Yeah, because in Philly it changed.
Yeah, I think it was under an ounce here. It's only a fine.
Yeah. Everything is changing so fast.
Fast.
Well, that was quick. That was painless, right?
It was painless. Yeah, you're right. I just
Good.
all right, wait. Are we still talking or are we like done?
Yeah, I have another question for you.
Oh, all right. Let me.
How are you being neighborly these days?
I'm not neighborly. My neighbors suck.
No.
They're all like street people. They all ask me for money. As soon as they don't see that I'm not gonna give them money for drugs, they like glaze through me. Like it's like that Black Mirror episode where you could get phased out, like people just can't see you. It's like I don't exist. Yeah.
But do you think that like your work in building houses, even though that's a business for you, do you consider that maybe giving back a little bit? Or making a difference for somebody?
I think that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're helping put a roof over somebody's head.
Yeah, to try to fix things when they get broken. So like, I guess not neighborly, but like kind of there is like a profitable motive. The core of that though. But yeah, I try to go above and beyond. That's just the kind of guy I am.
You are a good guy. I think some guys want to come off as an asshole, but in reality, they're a good guy underneath.
What are you saying? I come off like an asshole?
I mean, you told me that you're not neighborly, but you are neighborly.
I remember the one time I was like working 3 jobs. We were going to a Flyers game or something, and you were like, she was asked, why do you work so much? I was like, because wolves eat. You gotta eat. And I'm like, you're like, maybe I don't want to be a wolf. And I was like, good point. Like you're like,
I'm really different. Yeah, like Tom is the same way. Like he is like money, 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 and I'm like, I just want to be happy. And like, I guess he's like, well, you need money to be happy, and I'm like, I don't think I do, but
I mean, it sure makes it easier.
But that's why we're a good balance. Well, citizens, I would love you to DM me on the Instagram and let me know how you're being neighborly these days. You can find me on Instagram as thisjess, THISJES. Please share this podcast with your friends all over the country so they can learn about the positions on the ballots and history lessons and current happenings, and maybe even be inspired to start their own informative podcast. This has been your friend Jess. Dan, thank you so much for talking about the PA ballot with me. Will you lead us out?
Sure. I don't know what to do. Oh, wait. Is there like something with the script? Oh my God. Sorry, Jess. I'm so sorry.
You got this giant monitor.
I read that part. And did you see like the white turn on?
You got this, Dan. You've got it.
This out. Oh. I'll see you around the neighborhood.